guys, it's Dylan Laine, and today I want to share some thoughts I have with you about how to be kind to someone who has not been kind to you. I want to give a few disclaimers before getting started. First, unkindness can obviously vary in intensity. This particular video approaches situations that include interacting with someone you've never met before who does or says something unkind, yet in a non-abusive way. For example, people in customer service who have been impatient with you when you've been nothing but warm and friendly. Or if you're a customer service representative, then customers who attempt to make you feel bad for something that wasn't your fault. Other examples may include a driver who honks at you because you feel it's safer to drive 5 miles under when it's raining, or a random stranger who glares at you for no particular reason at all. I don't know about you, but when I find myself in these particular situations, the first thing I notice is that my heart begins racing. The second thing I notice is an instantaneous need to respond defensively. However, if I choose to respond defensively, this can often escalate the other person, which leads to very non-productive communication. Yet if I say nothing at all, I begin to worry that I appear weak, or that I have enabled the other person to continue being unkind to myself or to others. Something I realized is that there is no one answer that fits all of these situations. In some cases, it may be better to say something in a response, and in other cases, it may be better to say nothing at all. But what I am sure of is that there's always work that needs to be done internally in my heart and in my mind before I do decide how I'm going to react externally. So here are the 3 steps that I take whenever someone has been unkind to me. The first step I take is to convince myself that I shouldn't take it personally. I'm confident that this step will become easier over time as I practice it, but as of now, it is still something that is very unnatural for me to do, and it takes a lot of hard work. An indication of whether I am succeeding or not succeeding in this area is how fast my heart is racing. So the goal is to get my heart back to a normal, steady beat, which does happen as a byproduct of reminding myself that there are many contributing factors to why this stranger just did or said something unkind to me. One way that I work on not taking something personally is by practicing empathy. I try to consider the fact that maybe their loved one just broke up with them, maybe a loved one died, maybe they're just having the worst day of their life, maybe they're losing their job and this is their last week on the job. Maybe they've never been told about God's love, peace, and grace. And after I spend some time on empathy, I then work on some self-talk in which I remind myself it's not me. In the Bible, Jesus displayed the greatest example of empathy. While he was nailed to the cross, he could have expressed very justified anger, but instead he decided to look at the spiritual condition of those who had crucified him. And in Luke 23:34, he says, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." The second step I take is to process how I'm going to move forward externally. This is basically where I decide whether I'm going to respond verbally to the person who has been unkind to me, or if I'm going to decide to let it go and move on. The key here is to ask myself, what am I hoping to gain by responding externally? I have to answer this question honestly. And if my answer to this question is that I'm hoping that they will see how hurt I am or offended or disrespected I feel, and I'm hoping that they will apologize to me and feel bad, that is probably not going to go according to plan. And it's a sign that I should probably move on and let things go. It's too high of an expectation, and again, that's only when I'm interacting with people that I will not see on a regular basis. However, if my intention in responding to them is more along the lines of wanting to prevent future customers from being treated the way that I was treated, well then that's something to take a look at. For example, if I'm interacting with a customer service representative, I might calmly say something like, "Your approach with me has felt a bit unkind and it's left me questioning whether I should continue my business here or not." If I keep it short and sweet like that, it allows room for a two-way conversation in which they can then explain themselves if they want to, or maybe they do become more defensive or unkind, or maybe they do apologize. But either way, it leaves opportunity, it leaves space for a conversation, and that was my goal in coming up with that sentence. If they do choose to explain themselves or even apologize, then there's a great opportunity for reconciliation, and there's a good chance that that's planted a seed in them for how to behave with future customers. If, however, they become more defensive or more unkind, at that point, I do choose to just let it go and walk away and move on to step 3. The third and last step I take is to pray for the person who's been unkind to me. This is not an easy step, and it's not something that I naturally enter into in this peaceful state of mind, but it's so important that I do it anyways, because not only is it praying for that person and wanting the best for someone even if they weren't the best to you, but it's also so important to do for our own hearts and If we don't choose to pray for the people that upset us, it can create opportunity for resentment to build or unforgiveness, and that ultimately hurts ourselves. So because it's not entirely possible for me to know how to pray for someone that I've never met or have only interacted with for a few minutes, this is what I typically say in my prayer. I ask God to allow something to happen in that person's day that will display the love of God to them so that they will want to know God on a deeper level. I then shift the focus of the prayer to asking God for forgiveness during the times that I have been unkind in my life, and that's always a good reminder that I'm not perfect either. So again, the focus of the prayer is for that person to come to know and experience the love of Christ, and also for me to remain in a place of humility rather than going to God explaining all the things that I think that God should change about this person that's offended me. Now, when it comes to situations involving angry drivers or strangers who randomly glare, I honestly just go straight from step 1 to step 3, mostly for safety reasons. Honestly, the person glaring at me knows nothing about me or my life, and I can't even 100% prove that they are glaring at me or that they're glaring at all. It's just sometimes something that we make up in our minds. But even if they were, it's still not worth my time to say anything. And it's probably safer not to as well. As for the angry driver, they will not learn any lessons by being tailgated or yelled at with both of your windows up. I'm not saying you should roll your window down, but my point is that reacting to them will only infuriate them more, which is just not safe on the road. One last thing I want to address is if you are a customer service representative and you deal with unkind customers. I can imagine that must be so incredibly frustrating, and in that case, step 2 would be much more about stress management than about external response. Stress management may include prayer, deep breathing, meditating on scripture, as well as intentional rest at the end of every workday. Ask God to increase your strength as you recall Isaiah 40:29, which says, "He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak." Let me know in the comments down below if you have any wisdom to add to this topic, and leave any requests if you have them on other topics you'd like me to discuss. Until next time, remember to play right and spread the light.